Welcome to the Let Me Be Free podcast. My name is Jackie.
And my name is Alwynn.
We're two sisters from Ireland living in Australia, navigating our healing journeys together, and this is our podcast, Let Me Be Free. Hello, my beautiful sister. How are you on this lovely summer? Are we in summer in Australia?
Yes, we're in summer in Australia, and you're wearing a green...
Summer in December.
Huh?
No, summer's December. We're in spring.
Oh yeah, well, come here. It's so bloody warm that it feels like summer anyways.
It was raining today down south.
Oh, it was raining and a bit thundery yesterday. Bobby was in school and he was like, Mom, I was afraid. I was afraid that I was going to get hit by lightning. And then I was afraid that you were going to get hit by lightning. I was like, it was really loud. I'm loving your t-shirt, by the way. Ho, ho, ho.
Yes, I've ordered all of our Christmas t-shirts arrived today. I have Christmas t-shirts for you and Rob and both boys. So that we're all ready with Christmas cheer in November.
I love it. That's brilliant.
I like to spread out the Christmas as much as possible. Because, you can't really get away with wearing a Christmas t-shirt after Christmas, but you can get away with wearing a Christmas t-shirt months beforehand.
Yeah, after Halloween, though. You have to wear it after Halloween.
It has to be after Halloween. And they just arrived. If I could have worn it the day after Halloween, I would have. But yeah, they only just arrived today.
Oh, brilliant. I love it. I went to the shops today just to get a few more bits. And so Brona, my friend, she's going to be going home to Ireland for a holiday. And, she's a Christmas fanatic. It's so funny. She only said it to me today. She was like, Alwynn, I didn't say this to you before because we weren't chatting at the time, but I saw your Christmas photos last year. I think it was Jackie that put them up. And I saw your Christmas tree. It was the most miserable looking Christmas tree I have ever seen in my life. And I thought, Alwynn needs me in her life with my Christmas cheer. And so she's decided to give me her over-the-top, over-expensive, massive Christmas tree.
Oh my God. Well, that is the decision made then, because we've been going back and forth about whether to do it at your house or down on my property. If you're getting that Christmas tree, we are definitely doing it at your house this year. I love massive over-the-top Christmas trees. Like, if I wasn't living off grid and was limited with the amount of electricity that I have, I would have like so many of those blow up Christmas decorations and lights, and I just love them. So yeah, that's the decision made. We're definitely doing Christmas at your house this year if it means that we're going to have that massive Christmas tree. Thank you, Brona.
And not only that, she's like, I'm assuming that she is like what I used to be like, because honestly,
shouting.
Oh, because I don't have my earphones in, I'm worried.
You don't shout, because then I'll have to edit the audio even more to reduce your shouting. And I have enough to be doing.
I'll make it easier on you. But yeah, no, I think she's like I used to be. I met her yesterday, and I swear to God, I might as well have plugged her into the mains. She was like, and this is what we're going to do for Christmas, and then this Christmas, and then this, and this, and this. And honestly, by the end of it, I was bouncing off the walls with hopefulness of, wow, I forgot that Christmas is a fun time, because it's been so miserable the last few years, with everything that's been going on. And so this year I was like, yes, I am ready for an amazing Christmas, and I'm so excited.
It definitely helps when someone's willing to give you, because the other side of it, Ollie, is like, because I was looking at some of those nicer Christmas trees and Christmas decorations and all that stuff, but it's really expensive. When you're living in a new place and you've got to now get all of it, like it's it's fine because if you invest in it, you can have the same decorations for years and years. But like it is expensive if you want to get nice stuff. So the fact that you have someone who's willing to give you their nice stuff, like that's amazing.
I know. And she was so excited to share the love. And then this morning, I was like, if you're giving me your Christmas tree, can I have your swimming pool? Because she has this gigantic, massive swimming pool that she puts up for summertime, but she's going to be gone. She was like, I was just thinking that. I was like, we're going to have a pool and a nice Christmas tree. My
You
day
know,
is made
but
up.
Ali, all of your neighbors have pools and you use them.
I
So do you
know, but
need your own pool?
you kind of get a bit needy if you're in their pool every day. Like
Yeah,
seriously, they're amazing, but like you can't go over there all the time because having people in your house is stressful, especially when you have kids.
yeah,
Like so,
yeah,
you know, I have a rule of like once a week, if
yeah,
he
yeah,
and
yeah.
so that
Okay.
and the summer gets so hot and we don't have aircon. The aircon's not great in our house, and so being able to just jump in there, especially because we have the trampoline as well. Um, but yeah, so and that's the same. Like that's yesterday after talking to Brona about Christmas and everything, that was kind of was as well what spurred me on to be like, you know what, like so for everyone listening, we've been living in a house for about I'd say 7 years, and truth be told, like I just always feel like I'm a dirty pig. I'm gonna just say it because I've never learned how to clean. Like I was talking to one of the other moms from school the last day, and she said to me, she was, she knows I'm very open and honest, and she was like, she was saying about her friend was getting a cleaner, and she's like, I don't really understand why people get cleaners because like if you have a cleaner come to the house like once a week, that means you might only wash your toilet. You only wash your toilet like once a week. And I was like, girl, if I wash my toilet once a month, you're lucky. Like I was like, I never learned how to even wash clothes before I left home. No one taught me how to wash a dish, and so, since we've moved into that house, it just completely fell apart and none of the maintenance was done. And I was like, well, this is kind of all I deserve because I'm just filthy and I never keep anything clean. And, I have all these stories built up in my head. And I realized yesterday that, like, I just felt like that's all I deserved because that's our house that we grew up in was always messy and always just chaotic and dirty. And every time I thought about cleaning, I get so overwhelmed and so stressed. And so I started saying, okay, I'll do one thing at a time. And so I started washing the walls. And then I was like, wow, I have more capacity than I've ever had before. I have more attention span than I've ever had before. And I got this great satisfaction about having clean walls. And I was like, maybe I can do this. Maybe I can have a clean house. And so I emailed the owners and just kind of said, okay, these are all the things that are broken and I'd love to get it painted. And so I'm hoping that by Christmas time, I'm going to have the whole house, like
Ollie,
redone. Yeah.
Ollie, come on. Let's
No,
be. There is no way that you're going to get all that stuff done. Like you can't just email the owners and be like, "Oh, can you have the whole house painted by Christmas?" They're busy people. There is no way that that's going to be done before Christmas. It's pretty much Christmas.
yeah. Well, no, even if they don't do that, like even if they don't do that, even though if I could get the walls painted, it would be absolutely amazing. But even if they couldn't do that, then I'm saying at least like me and Alicia have been going through the house today and she's going to help me put up some shelving and she's going to help me put up some flower pots and just to make it more homely. Like it would be great to have the paint done for sure.
Yeah.
But I just realized last night, I was like, I just had this belief system that when I was healed, it was going to be in my own house and it was
Yeah.
going to look a certain way. And I realized last night that I haven't been allowing myself to live or breathe or actually allow myself to have any joy in my life because I didn't feel like my life matched what my perception of being healed would look like. And so I was
Mm-hmm.
like, I always believed when I'll be healed when I'm out of this house. Like, because this house was where me and Rob have literally just fallen apart and our lives crumbled. And so I was like, it just only feels right that we leave this crumbling house and we'll start off in this beautiful new house and our lives will start. And I realized yesterday that we're not going anywhere anytime soon. You were still trying to
Mhm.
sell Rob's house. We're just financially not there. And I was like, why am I waiting to live? Like, why am I waiting for everything to line up to allow myself to start living my life, you know? Um, and there was just such a sense of hope and purpose. I feel like I've just been a bit hopeless recently, like a bit just like, when is my life going to start? As if a fucking meteor was going to come out of the sky and whack me across the head, and I'd just be reborn again, and life would be magical and there'd be unicorns. And I was pissed off that it wasn't that way. I was pissed off
Mhm.
that I was still in this house. I was pissed off that things were still, not perfect. Um, and I just didn't feel like I had that sense of purpose or pride. And I really feel like, since talking to Brony yesterday about the bloody Christmas, it just really sparked a bit of hope and joy and possibility in my heart for what is possible and what can be possible. And so instead of looking at the house and thinking, I can't do this, like there's too much here to do, I've been honestly just going, Alwyn, just do one
Yeah.
wall, because whether it's my ADHD or my anxiety or my PTSD, whatever label it is that makes me just completely frozen in fear when I think about trying to tackle these things, I
Mhm.
just realize, like anything in life, it really does take that one step at a time. Take it
Mhm.
slowly. Stop trying to do it all and expect that it's all done, you know? And so I took down all the
In
blinds
fairness,
today.
Ollie, though, in fairness, when you guys put your house in Ireland on the market, you we all expected it to sell really quickly. And there's just been the craziest things that have happened to where it hasn't sold. Like like most houses anywhere right now are selling so quickly. That was the expectation. You were expecting that you were going to be out of your rental and you were going to have bought your own house by now. And so it's like, really, it's only just adjusting your framework to be like, okay, the house in Ireland hasn't sold yet. Let's actually assume that we are going to be here for another 6 to 12 months, maybe 2 years, and let's think about what needs to be done. But in fairness to you, you weren't going to have to think about the house that you're in right now because you weren't expecting to be there for very long.
Yeah, well, very much longer. And I think, you know what, I really do think that it does come down to a certain level of acceptance.
Mm,
I really couldn't accept that I was going to be in that house. Like last Christmas, after Christmas time has been a really hard time for us in the last few years. And, you know, I remember like after Christmas last year, like Rob is very flippant. Like he's not very like, I'm very more decisive, and you as well. We're very like, we get it something into our head and we go for it. Whereas Rob is very like nonchalant in many things. And so after Christmas last year, he said, he was just so, I've never seen him so with so much conviction, but he was like, we are not going to be in this house this time next year. Like we are not going to be here, not doing another year in this house again for the same reasons, because we've fallen apart in that house. It just feels like it's a bad omen. And I think I just felt like so much of me believed in that. And obviously he was like, a big thing for him was he was going to sell his house in Ireland, which was a massive thing for him to do. Um, and I think that, yeah, it was that expectation of that's where we were going to be. And that has to be the only point of happiness for me. And I think for me, it is about adjusting and accepting that, you know, it's that things can look different, but you can still find joy and happiness in it. It's like I couldn't accept. I really couldn't, because like we were talking about what are we going to do for Christmas, and I was like, honestly, I admitted to you yesterday, I was like, I'm kind of hoping that like I'm going to win the lotto in the next month or something, and we're going to. I swear, I think a big part of me was waiting for some lump sum of money to drop on our lap so that we were going to be in this magical house for Christmas, I was in complete denial because I didn't want to accept that I was going to have another year of pain and suffering like I have the last few years. But
Mhm.
it's not about the house either, though. Like in the last few years, like last year, I was at the fucking bike park at 6 a.m. on Christmas morning by myself with my two kids. Like, I just look back on all these last few years of Christmases going, like, I was in such a low place anyways that this year can't be anything like them because my mental health is 75% better. You know, I'm so much happier. I'm so much more at peace within myself. And so, you know, it has to be better just with that factor in it.
Yeah. Plus, I'll be there.
Yes, you'll be there. But it doesn't matter though, even if you're there, me and Rob aren't like, and I know Rob will be in a better space as well by the time Christmas comes. Um, if we're not in that space, you just have so much guilt and shame for not being able to be there for the kids emotionally, or
Yeah.
you're being there but you're not actually there. You know, it's
Yeah.
meant to be this joyous occasion. And I just found the last few years, me and Rob were just we just felt so drained and so low about it all because it was just me and him. It was Christmas Day. It was just me and Rob. And we had this expectation that the kids would play with their toys and we get some time to ourselves. And they did none of that, you know? Um, and so, yeah, I know this year will be different though.
Yeah.
And so what else are we going to chat about today, Jack?
I was just thinking that about, as you said that, about what you said, like the guilt and shame of not showing up for the kids. And you would not believe how many people in my life right now are dealing with like really big, like not necessarily really big stuff, but like they're just really struggling the last few weeks. And that sentiment has been said by so many people. Like, I just feel so much shame and guilt because I feel like I'm not showing up at all for my kids right now. Like, I'm not being what they need, and because of all of these things that are going on in my life. And it really surprises me sometimes how many um people will come to me and talk about similar experiences that they're
Mm.
having. And
Yeah.
yeah, I don't know what that is, but one thing that I know for sure, and I think it's something that you were talking about on our hike last week, was that like sometimes our kids are supposed to have the experiences they're supposed to have, and sometimes those experiences aren't the best experiences, but that's what they need to become resilient adults. You know, like,
Yeah.
we want to protect our kids from experiencing struggle, um but sometimes if it's their journey in life to experience that struggle, that's what is meant for them. And you're there to be the support for them so that they have someone to talk to and come to about it. Have you
Yeah,
been hearing
definitely.
a lot of stuff about that?
I have a little bit, definitely. Like I've noticed it in different frames as well, not just with kids, but like, you know, I think one of the things that I really recognize with guilt and shame is, you know, because I actually found recently, you know, because I generally am quite good about my shame, you know, because I've realized that so often when I was shaming myself, you know, it was actually prolonging the amount of suffering that my kids were experiencing because they just
Mm.
wanted me to take care of myself, me to love myself, me to be able to be the best version of me and focus on me so that I could be with them. They're so, like you said, they're so resilient. They bounce back so quickly. You know, once their parent has that space to move through what they're going through, and like you said, they can show up after the fact and be
Yeah.
honest about that or have a conversation about it, you know? That's really all kids need. Obviously, you know, there might be some things those children might need support with at some point, but I really think that so often we underestimate the power of open conversations and repairing and just communication. I honestly think the greatest struggle for children is the miscommunication, or the let's not talk about it so that we don't highlight the issues, when in reality they're feeling all of the issues and they're like, why is no one talking about it? So they
Yeah.
feel like there's something wrong with them, rather than everyone just having an honest conversation about it and airing it, you know. But like I found recently, you know, when Bobby had an argument with his friend, or you know, they'd started hurting each other, whatever, you know, I had a lot of stuff come up for me about my past with Bobby. And you know, it's about 2 years, I'd say, since those times when I was really like aggressive and everything with Bobby. And I found that even 2 years later, I was wailing, crying at the shame I felt at not having protected him, at not being better. You know, I still realized I've been still punishing myself for the actions I took 2 years ago when I couldn't have done any better. And what I realized was, when I zoomed out and I looked at the bigger picture, I think this is the problem. We're always looking at it from that microscopic view. Is my child suffering now? What is it they're experiencing? But when you zoom out and you look at the whole picture, you know, the whole dynamic, you know, like what I was doing recently was writing, say, the story of what happened back then. So I realized I was hyper focused on the kids' experience, but I wasn't taking in the full account of everything that was happening at that
Yeah.
point. And
Yeah.
so, in that microscopic view of how the children were experiencing their reality, I didn't have any um acknowledgement for all of the things I was experiencing that put me into that place to find that compassion, that love for myself. And also, I do firmly believe that our children choose us in order to help us heal the wounds, reflect those wounds, you know, show them up for us. And when I did that story, you know, reliving essentially that period of time with the boys, what I realized was I really had this different view when I looked back on it, because Bobby and Shay, especially Bobby back then, he was drawing me out. Like it wasn't as if I was just attacking him for no reasons. Like when I looked at when I zoomed down and looked at the whole experience, I really saw Bobby's role in it. That he chose that role. Like I was in bed, he could have easily just decided, okay, mom's out of the picture. You know, I'm gonna like color or just go into my own world or do some of those coping mechanisms. But he didn't. He decided to break stuff. Like he would literally break glass to get me out of bed so I could shout at him, because he wouldn't allow me to sink deeper into a depression. He was like, I'm here and you're going to get up and I want you to fight for me because I'm fighting for you. And so instead of seeing our kids' experiences as, oh, you know, I'm hurting them, I'm so like, this is something I'm doing to them, sometimes we can flip it and go, you know, what is it that they're trying to teach me? What is it that they're trying to show me? We are co-creating this reality. Like I would not have gotten here if Bobby didn't keep on pushing and showing me these parts of myself that I did not want to see. The reason why he gets a mom that's fucking incredible right now is because he fought for me and I fought right back for him. And there's no shame in that. I always kept seeing it from that one-dimensional view of all of the things I did to him, neglecting the fact that he had a part to play in this for me, with me, and the relationship that we have and are developing is better than I could ever have hoped for myself. It's still not
Mm-hmm.
perfect, but there's honesty
Yeah.
and there's integrity and there's, you know, there's a knowing that I am trying my best and a knowing that they are going to know I've given it my best. And that's
Mm-hmm.
all really that I can give every day.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I think sometimes when we really zoom out and look at the greater scale, the greater picture, uh, um, really write what's happening or what we have experienced from the start, it really sorry, I got this also from The Whole Brainchild. It's a book that the play therapist recommended. And The Whole Brainchild recommends for kids to process a traumatic event or process something that has happened. What they do is they tell the story or journal the story from the beginning to the end. And,
Mm.
you know, if things get too hard, they pretend that they have a remote and they can say, if you get to a point where it makes them really feel really uncomfortable, they can say pause there, and then you can fast forward it to, okay, and what part of the story you want to fast forward to? And they'll fast forward to, okay, then I got out of the car. Okay, so they continued from that point. And in continuing to tell the story, they get more comfortable with moving through the experience, and they also get to see it from a more broader scope. That
Yeah.
the trauma ended, they something changed, and also that things are different now. When they get to a period or a point in time in the story or the retelling that is uncomfortable, they can fast forward and continue on from a place that's comfortable for them. And then through telling the story, they one feel more comfortable with the emotions of the experience, and two, realize that the experience ends and there was an okay or a happy ending or everything was okay in the end. And then three, they can look back from their vantage point of right now. So say, for example, one of the kids was afraid to go swimming, and the mom had said to him, you know, I think that this might be actually from a previous experience when you were swimming when you were younger. And so she got him to tell the story of when he was younger. But when he reflected on it, he was like, okay, back then I wasn't able to swim and that teacher wasn't very nice. But now I'm actually a good swimmer. And if I don't like the teacher, I don't have to go back. So he was able to process that this experience
Mm.
in this moment is very different to the experience back then. And it helped him to get over the fear of swimming and actually go back to the swim pool. And so in that moment, I was like, I really feel like there's something within this for me. And so I said, one of my biggest triggers of late is my fear of having a breakdown. Like it's just these last few months, as I said in the last podcast, it was this fear of, you know, at any moment I'm just going to snap and I'm going to fall apart. And I felt like I just was controlling my whole life so that it was easy because I felt like I was fragile and frail. And I was like, I need to retell the story of the breakdown so I can help myself understand, you know, that back then is not the same as right now.
Yeah.
And it was an incredible experience. I would recommend it for anyone with any type of experience that they're afraid of experiencing again, whether it's a relationship breakdown, whether it's, you know, some people, whether it's a fear of meeting the wrong partner again, the wrong person, whether it's, you know, experience with your children or a car crash or whatever, you know, it's like, I retold the story of the breakdown. I retold it from the start. And as I told it and I wrote it, I was completely shocked by how I survived it. Like when I actually wrote the whole story with all of the details, not just the microscopic events of me lashing out at the kids, I was remembering it as if I just woke up one day and started attacking the kids like a psycho. But
Mm-hmm.
when I actually wrote the story, the whole complete story, and got the full vantage view of that experience and what led to that experience and how that all came about, there was so much liberation and freedom and so much pride that came out of it. By the end of it, I was really aware of, that is an experience I will never have again,
Yeah.
because of all of these reasons. And another part of it was, I believe that if I could just be prepared, then that would never happen again, or it never would have happened back then. But every time I retold the story, every time I wrote the story, because they say you can write it again or retell it again, every time I rewrote it or rethought it, I realized, and I came to realize, even if I went back now, I still couldn't have stopped that breakdown from happening. There was
Mm-hmm.
nothing I could do to change that breakdown from happening. But up until this point, I was always trying to find the magic pill, the magic goal that was going to make sure that I never experienced a breakdown again.
Mm-hmm.
But it was all the conditions that made that happen. And
Mm-hmm.
so, you know, I guess what I'm saying is, for anyone that is experiencing, say, example, the shame and the guilt, and whether that's for their kids, or the fear of moving forward because of, or going into another relationship, or whatever that may be, it's like, if you really tell the story of your previous, either the previous time that you were in that relationship, or say, for example, if you are afraid of, falling apart with your kids, or afraid of things getting worse with your children, it's like, try and tell the story from that zoomed out perspective, and get the full view of everything that's going on, and have some compassion for yourself, and realize, holy shit, like you said before, we've been talking about this quite a bit recently. Like, I am dealing with this experience so much better than I ever could have before.
Yeah.
Like, I am a better parent than I ever could have been before. Or I'm not a better parent right now, but this is the whole full view spectrum of why that's the case.
Mm-hmm.
And having that compassion for ourselves, and recognizing that, or children, whether it's, if it's children that we're talking about, partners, everyone is, I believe that we draw these people into our lives to reflect and learn from each other. And, you know, like I said to you the last day, when I was leaving the daycare and leaving Shay there, and he was crying, I sat outside and I realized, I have to trust that Shay is in his own experience. He's come to this earth to have his own experience, to have his own life. And I can't take away all his pain. I can't, stop him from experiencing pain. But a part of me really feels like, or felt like, that as a mother, that was my responsibility. It was my responsibility to make sure that they're happy all of the time, and that they have everything that they need. But in truth, the only responsibility that we have is to allow them to have their experience with us, and just try and be open and receptive and loving towards them and with them through those experiences.
Mm-hmm.
Because like Glennon Doyle says, we can do hard things. We and the kid or kids or whoever it is that's in our life, we can't. If you think about, like, I think about how I've tried to mollycoddle and wrap the boys in wool, because I didn't want them to experience any suffering. I felt like they experienced enough suffering with me, and I didn't want them to experience any more hardship. And I realized from that Glennon Doyle book, it's Untamed by anyone, by the chance, or by the way. The book is Untamed by Glennon Doyle. It's a brilliant book if anyone hasn't listened to it or read it. But, from listening to that Glennon Doyle book, I really recognized that, it's those experiences where we experience adversity, we experience hard times, but there's someone walking alongside us, and we get out the other side. That feeling of accomplishment, when you do something hard, when you
Mm-hmm.
move through those big feelings, that feeling of those feelings of accomplishment is way better than just feeling happy all the time. you
Mhm.
know? It really does stretch us and it helps us grow. I think the problem is where we have to do that alone. If a child is having to do that alone and you're not being open and honest with them to a
Yeah.
degree about that experience, then that's where I believe it's more traumatizing and more difficult. But I try to be very honest too much to a T, because now Bobby's giving out to me for telling him that the tooth fairy isn't real, and so I've had to backtrack. Um, but he asked me up front, and I hate lying. Like, it is against my being to lie now. And so he was like, Mom, I think it's you that's the tooth fairy. And I was like, yeah, it is. And then I was like, I appreciate my honesty. And then he cried and he was like, you could have lied. It's only a... And I was like, shit. I was like, I'm sorry, darling. I was like, it's not easy being a mom. I'm trying to do the best that I can do, and I want to be honest. But next time I'll remember that you want sometimes me to lie.
And so,
But
Ali, what's the update on Shay then? Because obviously, in the last episode, you had said you talked about him getting kicked out of daycare and all of that stuff.
yeah, so he's doing amazing. He's doing amazing. So we started and there was definitely a shift even before Shay went to the play therapist. There was definitely a shift in that session where me and Rob um sat in there with the play therapist and went through the trauma. Because I think in that session, the play therapist had said about he doesn't have a secure attachment to me, and the reasons why, we talked about the all of those. And I really felt like that shifted something within me, because I could understand then what was going on, the needs that he was having. I was much more able to be open to him then and give him and meet those needs, because I understood what it was, because I didn't understand what was wrong with him. I didn't understand what I was doing wrong, but I realized, that I could give and give and give, but it wasn't working, because the connection and um the the depths of connection that he was needing to fill that void that he didn't have filled or whatever was just so much that I just kept getting frustrated. So anyways, initially just with that, I felt and noticed a difference. Shay was needing a lot more from me, and I felt like I was able to give more to him, knowing it was temporary, knowing that this is just, something that needs to happen for him to feel safe. So then we started the play therapy, and play therapy, interestingly, for anyone else that goes to play therapy, I think they're a bit flabbergasted, because the kid just literally plays with some toys. But from my trauma perspective, I found it fascinating. I could totally see what was happening. Like, he started playing with the toys, and then he was playing the first thing he did was he picked up handcuffs, and he was like, I don't like handcuffs because I have nightmares about being locked in jail all the time. I was like, well, right out with it there, Shay. And then there was this little doll, and then he had a ambulance, and then he was running over the doll with his ambulance, and he was looking at the Fran, the play therapist, and he was like kind of looking to see what her reaction was. And he was like, she's dead. And she was like, oh, she's dead. And then he looked again and he said, she's dead forever, and still she didn't react, but you could see that he was testing the limits, testing the boundaries, wondering, are my feelings okay in here? Is it okay for me to express in here? So the first session was, pretty like calm. There wasn't really much going on. I think he was just sussing her out. And then the second session, he had this ball and he kept on trying to fling himself off the ball. And Fran was like, the only rule in here is that you're safe. And so I have to make sure that you're safe. And so he kept on trying to fling himself off the ball again and again and again. And he kept on giving out to both of us for trying to help him. And he ended up getting hurt then because he got a splinter, and he was really angry with her, you know. But so it was really interesting. It was like he was asserting with this safe person, he was asserting his anger, you know, and saying that it was her fault that he had gotten a cut on his finger or whatever. And then the third session, he started off with the ball again, and then she had said, you know, we can put down some blankets and some soft things. At least then you'll be safe. And once he was able to do that, he was able to do the thing and then feel safe afterwards. And then he stopped with the ball, you know? It was like, I don't know, something must have completed in his mind. And then he did this thing where he got a blanket and he put me and him under the blanket. And he was saying to Fran that Fran is going to be the pirate, and she was going to try and steal the treasure, and Shay was going to protect me and him. And so, you know, it was really about, because what Fran was saying to him was, wow, you're really safe in there. You are really safe and you are really strong. You're able to protect yourself and your mom. That is incredible. So it was about him seeing that he is safe in the world and that he has the power to change his circumstances, that he's not a victim, that he's not a, you know, because like he didn't feel safe in his environment, didn't feel safe in the connection, didn't feel safe in the world. And by him reenacting this over and over, he shot poor Fran about 50 times and she died about 50 times. It was his way of really asserting and stepping into a power that he didn't have before. And he felt more safe and confident in the world because he could keep me safe as well. You know, we were both safe in that blanket, you know. And then at home, he's just been so much calmer. At home, yeah, the behaviors have been pretty much non-existent. He has been really calm, really settled. He gets dysregulated, but he is able to move through that dysregulation much quicker. He gets angry and then he says he's been apologizing for his anger, like, you know, not in a way that you know, I'm sorry, Mom, for getting angry with you. And I'm the same, and I'll say, I'm sorry that I got angry at you. And he's able to communicate the big feelings a lot better. And he started the new daycare, and like so far, so good. He's been doing really well. Like the only behaviors that he's been exhibiting has been to say fucking shit. Once every 2 days or something, and they've been working with him on that, and they said that, you know, he's been regulating really well after that. So yeah, he's been amazing. He's been really, really, really great. And now I was talking to Fran about, because, you know, since Shay started the play therapy, and I don't know whether it's Shay or whether it's just kind of the dynamics of our house and maybe Bobby feeling more safe to express his needs and his dysregulation, he's been actually, you know, hitting Shay a lot again, which was his old pattern. And so, you know, I talked to Fran about that, about, you know, whether I should bring Bobby in. And she was saying that, you know, maybe I could bring Shay and Bobby in together. We haven't fully set on the dates, but or the agreement and what the plan of that is. But, you know, since the relation, it's an issue and a pattern that's been developed within their relationship. That would be a good thing to work on in the play therapy session. And so, like, you know, they have the parent there in the play therapy session so that they're working on the triggers, you know, like the parent, whatever the triggers are with the parent and child, they can be represented. Whereas because especially Shay and Bobby, you know, that is Bobby's trigger. Like he hates hitting Shay. He wants me to stop him, but sometimes I can't get to him before he hits him, you know? And so I'm hoping that we'll be able to start with the both of them soon. Just because mainly I know that Bobby really hates when he does it, but he also can't help himself. It's
Yeah.
just that's the pattern he developed when he was young and when I wasn't safe. That was the only way that actually, interestingly enough, he said it this morning. Now, what did he say? Oh, so Bobby said something about um hitting Shay when he was younger or something. And I said, yeah, I said, you did used to hit Shay quite a bit. And I was like, it wasn't because you were bad or you wanted to. It was because I had a lot of big feelings back then and I had a lot of anger. And then Bobby said to me, he was like, okay, yeah. So you had a lot of big feelings and a lot of anger. And then and you got angry at me. And then I took all of those big feelings and anger out on Shay. And I said, yeah, that's exactly it. And I was like, so, it's just developed into a pattern. And it's something that I find really hard to help him change, that kind of way. And so
Yeah.
I'm hoping that that'll be the next step because they've got such a beautiful bond now.
Yeah.
But I know that Shay takes it, like Shay actually eggs Bobby on sometimes when he feels like Bobby's dysregulated. It's
Yeah.
like he got in the habit of allowing Bobby to take his anger out on him.
Mm-hmm.
And so sometimes it's nearly like Shay is egging him on to say, here, take out your anger. I don't want you to feel sad. I don't want you
Yeah.
to feel angry. Yeah, it's like there was this unspoken rule between them. And I don't want
Mm.
Shay to be having to take on Bobby's feelings. And I believe that that's something he has adopted.
Yes, yes, yes.
So yeah, it's amazing how the whole family dynamic works and how each child fits into their own role because Shay absolutely loves Bobby. He absolutely worships him. And I noticed it a few times where he he it was like he wanted Bobby to feel better. And he was like, this is how I can help you. You can take it out on me, you know?
Mm, yeah.
Um, just such an interesting dynamic, but you can see that when you know someone's hurting and you don't want them to hurt because you love them so much.
Yeah.
It's amazing that they can develop those patterns. And
Yeah.
though
And it's
um
also amazing that you can have help to break them because those patterns become adult patterns.
yes,
Like this happens every day with adults where they it's just what they know and what they're comfortable with is to allow other people to take out their big feelings and anger on them because that's what they know. And yeah, until you actually break that pattern, you will always attract people into your life who need to do that. So
yes, you're so right. And I
yeah.
think that's another actually it's a just what you said there is a good segue for something I was thinking about before we got on the call. It was about, looking at our lives and looking at what it is that we believe we are deserving of in
Mm-hmm.
what's represented in our outer world or outer environment. Because I really recognize, last night when I was thinking about the house, I really recognized that I didn't believe that I was deserving of or worthy of a nice house. It was like other people could have that, but that wasn't me. Like I wasn't deserving or worthy. I was a poor kid. Like I'm a dirt poor Castle Park, you know, girl pretending to be something I'm not.
Yeah.
And so what is in my external environment is a true reflection of what it is internally. So the house
Mm-hmm.
falling apart, that made sense to me. Dirty walls, yeah, I'm dirty inside. You know,
Yeah.
all of these, all of these things outside of me were mirroring what was inside of me. And I really thought about that today before we got on this podcast about looking at our lives and looking at our relationships, looking at our friendships, looking at our jobs. Like, what is it in my outer reality? What is it my outer reality um telling me about what I believe I deserve, you know?
Yeah.
So if I'm in a job where my boss treats me like shit or doesn't respect me, then that is an indication that I believe that I am undeserving of respect. And I know
Yeah.
that many people say, but I know I deserve respect. But it's not
Hmm.
true. That's what we have told ourselves to believe.
Yeah.
But if we truly know and believe that we are deserving of respect, then the people in our lives will respect us. They
Yeah.
will be, they will show up with respect for us,
Yeah.
you know? And,
Absolutely.
and so it's like looking at our marriage, you know, if my marriage is, you know, is devoid of connection or devoid of um, you know, of respect or whatever dynamic it may be, then on some level I feel like I am unworthy of that. Same with our environment. If my outer environment is chaotic, you know, if my outer environment is dirty, then it's like that's all I really deserve. You know, it's really looking at what is in our external reality as an
Hmm.
indicator of what we truly feel and believe internally so that we can
Yeah.
change it, you know? Like,
It's interesting you talk about that, because this last week I did EMDR with my therapist for the first time. Um, and a big part of it was like understanding what my belief systems are. And so often it happened that, like, for example, it'd be like, oh, I deserve to be believed, for example. And I'd be like, yeah, of course I deserve to be believed, like, absolutely. But then when I really like checked in, or we did like, yeah, like I really checked into my body to find out, like, because she would ask, at 1 out of 10, how much do you believe that? And I'd be like, oh yeah, absolutely 10. Like, I absolutely deserve to be believed. But then I would like check in, like feel into my body and ask the question, and it would be like 2 out of 10. Like,
yeah,
I don't really believe that. And
yeah,
so often I feel like there's a big disconnect. And I don't know if this is the same for everyone, but certainly there's been some massive things that I've realized this week that are so different between cerebrally what I believe to be true, like intellectually in my head, what I believe to be true. But then when I really check in and to, like, I don't know if what you would call it, but like, I would say that it's like my inner child or my wounded parts or whatever that is, like, and they have such a different answer. And
yeah,
they are the ones that are actually driving the steering wheel. And yeah,
yes,
like, I think because on EMDR, like when she does the finger back and forth where your eyes are moving, you can't think about stuff. Like, I'll cerebrally think through things, and you just can't do it because your eyes are moving from side to side, and you're moving from one brain section of the brain to the other. So it's just very difficult to like try have a thought process while doing that. So everything that's kind of coming up into your awareness is subconscious. And yeah, it was just fascinating to become aware of, like, for example, I'm not in a relationship, and she was like, well, we were going through so many things, but this was one of the things that came up. And she said, well, do you believe you deserve to be happy in a relationship? And I was like, yeah, of course I do. Like, and I checked in, and I was like, maybe not.
yeah,
Like, and you look at my life, and it's like, well, obviously I'm not in a relationship, so that's the reality. Like,
yeah,
so so it makes sense that there's a belief system under that.
yeah,
um and yeah, just like, it was pretty incredible, like some of the other things that came out of those sessions that I just didn't know about myself. It's just,
wow,
it's mind blowing to think that at 36 years old, I can find out things about myself that I had no, like genuinely had no clue, genuinely.
Yeah. And I think that's really the reality of the shadow self, though, isn't it? Like the
Mhm.
whole point of the shadow self is to stay completely hidden. And we
Mhm.
try to be the complete opposite of the shadow self. Like, like I see, it everywhere, like people who are so nice and they are like the nicest person in the world. And it's again, it's that mirroring. It's like, and they hate people who are disgruntled and angry or frustrated. But in reality, it's because at their core, they believe that that is essentially them. Like they feel like they're really nice and they're bubbly, but in actual fact, it's because they're trying to be the opposite of what they truly believe within themselves. Like,
Yeah,
it's
absolutely.
that yeah, that I'm, angry and like, but no one wants to see that part.
Yeah.
And like you're saying,
And
it's
one of, that's another perfect example, because one of the things that came up was this belief system that I must have done something very bad to deserve the life that I've had. Like this belief system
yeah,
that was born as a child, where, experiencing such traumatic events as a child, I kind of came to this belief system about myself, which, by the way, I didn't know before I did the EMDR,
you
that
didn't know that.
I must have done something. No, I didn't. I must have done something really bad, uh, maybe in a previous life, or, like I must have been someone bad in a previous life, that in this life I've had such a horrible life, or just this feeling like I must be inherently a bad person. And that shows up in my life by, like, I'm constantly aware that I need to do the right thing all the time. Like if there's a situation where I behave in a way that's not in alignment with who I want to be, like I experience so much pain as
Yeah.
a result of doing something that I don't feel like is the right thing to do by the standard that I want for myself. And it's like, because I have that belief system about myself, I'm I'm over the top in the other direction in my life. Like
Exactly.
I'm excessive in the opposite direction. So people look at me and they go, wow, like she's a very thoughtful person, or she's a very, I don't know what you would call it,
Mm.
like good person. She's a very good person. But really it's because internally I feel like I'm such a bad person. I'm like overcompensating.
Yes, exactly. And it's so interesting that you say that, Jack, because this is across the board for I think most people that have childhood trauma. Like Rob, we only talked about that exact thing a few days ago. Like, Rob was saying the exact thing that, you know, he believes that inherently there must be something really wrong or really bad about him, that he has to be good all of the time, and he has to, and the same thing, if he says something, even the smallest bit like upsetting, or if he feels like someone has taken something he had said in a negative light, like you said, that shame, that self-loathing is so profound because of the reality of the belief system that I'm there. It's like they're seeing through me. It's like they're going to
Mm-hmm.
see through this facade that I've created. They're seeing the real me. It's like the mask is slipping, but the reality is that's not the real you either. Neither of them are
Yeah,
the real you. But I
yeah,
remember I remember like I remember the exact same thing as well, because I'm not as bad now, but years ago, like I remember if I got on an argument, or I remember Leanne at one stage, one of my best friends, I remember like, saying something I think that upset her. I was nearly suicidal. Like
yeah.
I would, it, like I couldn't cope with someone seeing me in a negative light, because the truth was that deep down, I firmly believed that I was rotten to the core, and that she was starting to see that. You know, it was like that shadow coming up. But the other thing as well that I'd like to, point out is, like, look at our dad. Like, the reality is he was trying to be such a good person, like the good Samaritan who everyone loves. And unfortunately, this is what we have in our society. People who, on the picture of the surface, seem to be the nicest, the best, the friendliest, the good Samaritan, the person who you would never expect to do this. It's because they're so overcompensating to be good because of the reality of the depths of them that feels bad. And this is where we really struggle in our society, because we still don't see this. We still don't see this. It's across the board. So I guess, what we're saying is, anyone listening, it's just worth reflecting. It's just worth reflecting on, on what it is that we believe about ourselves. And I guess, how true is it? We look at the, I remember in one of the things that I did years ago, they said, if you could wake up tomorrow morning and only keep one of your traits, what would it be? And I remember at the time, it was my selflessness, my caringness, my selflessness. And then the next question was, okay, then who in your childhood was the opposite of selfless, So childhood was selfish, but I realized that I was so afraid of being selfish or self-centered that I became completely selfless. I went all the way over to the other side of the coin to avoid being, selfish, but again, it's another, we can't live on one end of the scale. We have to try. And for the person who is completely selfless, it's like, okay, well, this isn't healthy either. How can I be more selfish? And for the person who feels selfish, how can I be more selfless? Or for the person who would wake up tomorrow and bring their, say, their drive, their like, their ability to achieve. It's like, well, that's not healthy on that spectrum. So how do I, allow myself to, also find some balance for just spontaneity or freedom, or whatever the opposite of achieving is,
And
I think
that balance is the key word. Really. It's just about balance. If you're,
exactly.
when you're extreme in one way or the other, it's not a good or a bad thing. It's not a should or a shouldn't. It's just about balance. Like you just need to come to the middle, wherever you're at. As long as you're kind of somewhere in the middle, we're generally going to function pretty good in life, and have the life that we want.
Yeah. And like, the reality for me is, an example on my side was, I used to really get frustrated with people who were like selfish or self-centered, or that just kind of like didn't care about anyone else and thought about themselves. Like, I hated it. Like, it would just grate me so bad. And I'd have such a visceral reaction to it, those people in your life that you're like, oh, I can't stand them, or I can't stand being around them, or they drive me nuts. And I realized that the reason that they drove me nuts was I actually wanted to be more like them. I wanted to be a bit more self-centered. I hated that they thought about no one. I'm like, you just don't get to do that. You have to be selfless. Do you not understand? Did you not get the memo? People who are selfless are the ones that like people like and are and that achieve in the world. Like, have you not gotten the memo? But in reality, I was just rejecting the I was rejecting that part of me that wanted to be selfish, that wanted to think about myself more, that wanted to say, no, I don't want to go to that party, or no, I don't want to cook that dinner, or no, I don't feel like, or whatever it may be, It's really looking at our outside world and the things that piss us off and the people that piss us off, and try and think, what is it about them that I reject? And what part of that am I rejecting within myself? Like all of these things are again just showing a bit of that shadow self, you know?
Yeah.
So there's our all the way around in a big circle. I haven't a clue what even we covered today, but it was a good chat.
Yeah, perfect. Okay, sis. Well, I'll leave you to do the school pickup. And I will chat to you later. Have a good day.
You too.
Thanks so much for tuning in today, guys. If you haven't done so already, please join our Facebook group, Let Me Be Free, The Wounded Inner Child, and post either anonymously or not what's going on for you in your world. We'd also be delighted if you would share this podcast or the Facebook group with one person who you think would benefit from the information. Be alone, Mahaguf. Have a beautiful day.